Hi there, my name is Jess, and I want to go into a little mini rant about how unfair the whole government assistance thing works. So, I was on a disability pension. I have complex post traumatic stress disorder from multiple years of trauma, abuse, previous partners trying to kill me, childhood abuse, um, pretty rough life, to say the least. So I had to give up my disability pension in Ontario when I moved to Quebec. Um, I moved to Quebec only for 3 months. I fled there because of domestic violence, and my husband has a really bad drug problem, and he has stalking behaviors and stuff like that. So I fled to Quebec because I thought it was the safest option to protect my newborn son and I. And then I came back to Ontario to fight for my other kids, and been trying to get our life back ever since. We've been experiencing issues with homelessness, and there hasn't really been much support. We were offered a housing situation through transitional housing program for abused women and children on August 23rd. Um, we're only just now in October, and we were evicted last week because my ex-partner was shooting crystal meth 1 block away from our apartment. So our location was compromised. Me and my two children were asked to leave very abruptly. And I have very limited choices. I'm very sheltered, isolated. I don't have family support. I had one single friend that I called on that was able to assist. So this friend offered me to rent a room in her house. So I am sharing a small upstairs bedroom at the moment with myself and two young babies. And then I have my 8-year-old Monday to Wednesday, who also stays with me. And I try to get back on government assistance for help. My children are very young and needy and dependent on me. And there's a lot of footwork I have to do to get our lives back in order. My son is 5 months old. My youngest daughter is 2 years old. And today, after waiting for over a week for an appointment with social services, they denied my application. And the reason for this was because they wanted to see the original lease or ownership of the entire house that I was just renting a room in. Now, the person that's renting me a room doesn't want to give over this personal information, and that should be within their right. I have no ownership or no stake in this house. I'm simply just trying to rent a single room for me and my children. It's not my business, what their income is, or if they own their house, or if the bank owns their house. Like, I'm not sleeping with this person. There's no romantic involvement. There's no ties. They don't owe me anything. They're just helping me out. And so social assistance won't help me because they want access to their personal information, and that's their information. It's got nothing to do with me. I don't have any holds over that home other than that one room that I was supposed to rent. So now I'm not going to be given any money for anything, rent, food, anything. So that's the way the government works here in Ontario, and it's pretty ridiculous. You know what? It's probably like that in a lot of places, the social assistance. I've noticed, especially here in the city that I'm currently in, they have this bias and this attitude towards poor people or, you know, people that are like temporarily experiencing homelessness or poverty, they have a huge stigma against them. And honestly, they treat us like shit. They treat us like dirt. I've been on the phone all week with multiple people from the social service office, and they have been so rude to me. It's been absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? When I have confronted them on it, they've hung up on me. I've requested to speak to a supervisor multiple times. No one will let me speak to a supervisor. They just continue to hang up on me instead. Some of them wouldn't even give me their names so that I could know who to reference when I called back. They said the office is closed to the public, so I can't show up there in person asking for help. It's all pretty ridiculous. Like, the way they talk down to you is absolutely disgusting. They should not be in the social service sector if you're gonna talk to your clients like this. Like we're trash, you know, like talking to us like we're worthless pieces of shit. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous, you know. And especially like you know, a young mother with young children that's like experiencing homelessness and fleeing domestic violence, you know, that was formerly on a disability pension. You know, like, you would think like I would be entitled to some help, especially when, you know, I'm facing homelessness again. And, you know, like, my friends that said they would rent me that room, like, you know, I have to pay them some rent money. I can't expect them to, like, you know, just help us out, like, you know, for nothing. Like, they're in the poverty as well. Like, you know, they're no better off financially, you know, than me, pretty much. Like, they rely on a disability pension as well. So, you know, they're just trying to help, and they weren't gonna charge me a ridiculous amount, you know, $500 a month. It's standard in this area for a room rental anyway. But, like, I mean, it's just crazy. And then the government won't help me. So I tried to speak up for myself on the phone, and I was talking to the guy this morning, and he kept cutting me off and talking over me. And I put him in his place, and I said, listen, this is not how a conversation works. A conversation is two-sided. You get a chance to speak, I get a chance to speak. You don't get to repeatedly talk over me and push your agenda. Like, that's not a conversation. You know, that's a one-sided monologue. Like, this is ridiculous, you know? Like, I deserve the respect to be able to speak as well. You know, I'm trying to explain our situation and how we need help and what we need help with, and he's just continually interrupting me and talking over me. And then when I try to express these appropriate boundaries, that it's not okay to be talking over someone when they're trying to explain the situation, he hung up on me. You know, I asked him, like, you know what, give me a supervisor. Let me speak to a supervisor. Multiple times I've asked to speak to a supervisor. They won't. They won't let you speak to a supervisor because they know that they're in the wrong, the way they're talking to you and the way they're putting you down and belittling you. And you know what? Like, how can you be working in this profession and not realize that, like, you know, common courtesy and, you know, the rules of communication, and, like, how is it that your emotional maturity is so shit that you're going to get flustered and hang up on a desperate woman seeking help from the government, all because, you know, I might have bruised your ego when I said you need to stop talking over me. This is not how a conversation works. Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. And then the guy from a couple of days ago, I'm just like, I called him on his ego. I said, listen, can you just, like, put your ego aside for a second and help us out? You know, because I wouldn't be calling you for help if we didn't really need it. You know, like, I don't want to go back to prostitution to feed my kids. Like, I shouldn't have to do that, you know, but the government forces women like me into these scenarios and situations because the programs that are in place to help women like me, for some reason, these government workers are acting like as if we're taking it out of their back pockets and not from the government subsidies and whatnot that are being issued. So that's a problem. And so the guy that I called him on his ego a couple days ago, he's like, oh yeah? Well, this is my ego hanging up on you. And I'm like, wow, how did you get such a job that you're in the social service sector, you're in a position of authority, you're in a position of a power. People are relying on you for their fucking livelihood so they can feed their kids. And that's your response? This is my ego hanging up on you. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's just like absolutely ridiculous. You know, I can't wait till the day comes when we're no longer in this situation. I will be a millionaire someday. I will be successful, and I will be the person that helps those that are less fortunate. I want to make a vow and a promise that in the future, when I do become wealthy and successful and my business kicks off, that anyone, anywhere that has been denied social assistance or government assistance, they need help, come to me, bring me a simple piece of paper if they can, stating that their file was refused. I will give them a $200 Walmart gift card so that they can get some groceries or clothes or whatever for their family. No questions asked. And that's my promise to the public and humanity when I become wealthy and successful. I'm tired of this imbalanced, world that we live in, where the impoverished people get stepped on and trampled on. And you know what, sometimes it's long term for some people living below the poverty line, but sometimes it's just temporary, and sometimes it's situational, and you never know who the fuck you're dealing with. Really? People can make assumptions about people, but that doesn't mean that they know who they are or what they're capable of. And it's really going to turn around to bite you in the ass. When I become successful and fucking, rise above, and all these industries and agencies that have trampled on me and refused to help me and my children, I will squash their organization underfoot as Jesus squashed the serpent. Seriously, I am tired of it. I am tired of people getting treated like shit that just need help. I tried to rent a storage locker a couple days ago, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have an address. I don't have employment. I don't have an emergency contact. I'm like, I have the money and I have my ID to rent the locker. I'm like, can I please just rent the locker? I can't fill out the rest of the paperwork. And they were really rude to me and threw me out of the store, refused to rent me the storage locker. They were insulting me and berating me in front of my two very young children. And I didn't feed into it. I just responded by repetitively telling them, please just leave me alone and let me leave. Please just leave me alone and let me leave. And I just kept repeating that because they kept insulting me and attacking my character. And all I was trying to do was get out the door at that point with my two young kids. My left arm was broken last year because of domestic violence and issues, and so it takes me longer than some people to get out the door of certain places. Plus I have my 2-year-old in my arm and then my son in the car seat, so it's it takes me a little bit longer to do certain things. And of course, my 2-year-old's, flailing around and being restless and everything. And I'm just trying to pay for a storage locker. I had the money. I wasn't asking for any fucking handouts. So, I was able to find a different place to rent from, thank God. So at least I have a storage locker to put my stuff in so we don't lose everything again. As in the last year, we've lost everything twice. And I mean everything. And I've started over from scratch. And, like, here we go again. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. The government, like, even though, like, I should qualify for assistance, me and my children, they want to keep you, like, stuck and desperate and, like, needy. And, like, honestly, it feels hopeless a lot of the time. It feels so fucking hopeless. I get caught up in the despair because, like, here I am, like, fighting for my life, fighting for my kids, fighting just to survive, and they want to make me, like, beg and plead for government assistance that they're not even going to give me. So I'm like, meanwhile, my ex is a contractor. He makes tons of fucking money. Like, but if I went to him for help, first of all, I might get beat up. I'm gonna get lied to. I'm gonna get cheated on. He might give me an STD because he has an addiction to prostitutes. He might try to kill me again. Like, who knows, right? So, but, we're put in these desperate situations where, we have no choice but to resort to certain actions or behaviors or unhealthy, toxic people that could harm us because we have no help where the help should be coming from. Why is it that the government is making it so hard for women like me to start over and to leave these abusive scenarios? Like, would you have rather, like, him just kill me so that I wouldn't have to be, like, a drain on, the government's pocketbook? Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I go back to him. He's a really dangerous guy. And he's very unpredictable. And he's a crystal meth addict and crack cocaine addict. I go back to him. I could lose my life. I will lose my kids because Child Protective Services have already told me that they will take my kids if I go back to my ex. Because he's been given too many opportunities to change and he hasn't. So, it's like, it's really not leaving me much option. Like, so, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's difficult. I don't know where I go from here. Honestly, I don't want to go and prostitute. I don't want to do things like that. At this point in time, I cannot run my business. Like, I'm self-employed. I was self-employed. With all the turmoil that's going on with my life right now, with the instability and the homelessness and now, like, the doctor's appointments and, like, not having, like, adequate, reliable, consistent childcare, with all of that, I cannot run my businesses, and so until I get settled, and, like, my root chakra calms down and everything, and I have someone, like, that I can, like, trust to leave my kids with and everything, like, until I'm at that point, I cannot really work. And it's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I'm unwilling, because I have the potential to be a very successful person, but because of my life circumstances at this time, everything is just too difficult for me to run any businesses, and I cannot go and work for someone else for multiple reasons. I am the kind of person that needs to be self-employed. And I am successful when I do apply myself. But as I said, being homeless, not having a steady place to live, not having stable childcare, these are all barriers. I have to get some kind of foundation for me and my kids before I can be successful. I have 2 websites that I designed, that I manage, that I operate. And these are nonprofit businesses that I've been trying to start up. But at the moment, it's on hold because of everything that's going on in my life. But I hope to, like, someday soon that they're going to take off and that I'm going to have the time and energy to devote to these businesses, that the time and energy that they deserve, because these businesses that I'm starting are super important and they're going to help so many people. I just have to get situated myself first, mask on first before you can help other people. But the 2 agencies that I have started up is one, it's called To Serve and Protect, and it's www.toserveandprotect.info, and that's to raise awareness for victims of police brutality and to support victims of police brutality. The other nonprofit foundation, and this is the one that's dear to my heart, this is the one that's going to kick off, this is the one that's going to be fucking international, and it's going to help millions of people. It's for parents that have lost their children to the child welfare system. It is a program that I am soon going to kick off in a more elaborate way. It's conference management and case management and assistance and advocacy for parents that have lost their children to the child welfare system. It's support for these parents so that they don't fall apart, so that they don't fall into drugs, so that they don't commit suicide, so that they don't fucking lose hope and lose their kids forever. And I am going to be fighting for these parents so that they can either regain custody of their children or that they can at least have fair access and visitation rights to their children. And every single city that has a child welfare system, which is everywhere, Child Protective Services or Children's Aid Society, depending where you are, they call themselves different names. Some people call them the legal kidnappers. Any city, any town that has a Child Protective Services, my program will be. And it's called Survivors of CAS. My website is www.survivorsofcas.org. And it's going to be taken nationally and internationally, all across Canada and the US. That's my plan. Any city that has Child Protective Services, my program will be. And it's going to be huge and it's going to be beneficial. And a lot of people are going to receive the help that they need, because for a lot